I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so excited to be talking with Kathryn Hahn all about her work in the studio. And one of the things that I love how you've talked about this character being so clear on the page in the way that Seth and Evan wrote her. And I was
Mhm.
really interested in how that made it a little bit different in terms of the preparation and the way that you were developing this character, especially because, you've also spoken about how she's kind of this amalgamation of like little details and flourishes and vignettes of different people that you've met over the years.
Yeah, I mean, on the page, in the original idea for her, I think that she was definitely more of an antagonist to them, and a little bit more like I don't remember her being as like trying to keep her finger on the pulse. Like I don't remember that being like talking like a you know like trying to keep up with the kids. But like that was something we certainly found together and with Cami, our incredible costume designer. So like I remember wanting to go the hype beast route, and that I think took that was like a real door opener for all of us, was finding. And but like you said, she was in there already. Like she was, I mean, when I read it, she's so hilarious, and she's definitely already in the on the page. But I think that we definitely I mean, they're so collaborative. It's so fun to like find. We definitely found like the nuances of the way that she spoke, and kind of um her intensity, I should say.
I mean, even just to that point about her intensity and the way she talks, there's kind of a frenetic energy to her, and it feels like a lot of it stems from that place of that paranoia of I have to hold on to everything. It's a house of cards; it could fall apart at any
Yes,
moment around me, and
totally.
especially with the fact that Patty's just been fired, and
Hmm.
that they've seen this happen time and time again.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, how did that idea, like psychologically, create the way that you were externally playing this character that's just always in fast, furious motion?
Well, it is running as fast as she can. Like I think it's running definitely like trying to keep us like a few steps ahead of like the younger generation that's just like chomping at the bit to at least in her mind, chomping at the bit to just like trot her down like she probably did to so many people in front of her. And so I think that frenetic feeling is just total and sheer panic. Yeah, about being inconsequential, or um invisible, or just not needed anymore. I think that's her deepest fear, is aging out.
And one of the things that's so funny about her as a character is she loves to project this almost like overly extreme confidence. And
Hmm.
yet you can tell where things come from. You can see that she spends a lot of time kind of thinking about like internet speak and trying to sound cool, asking, is Ron Howard's cousin really dead IRL? Or, using Delulu as a phrase. And so that she's kind of trying to fit in a lot of ways. And what was that like playing a character that tries to project such confidence, but that there's all this like, how do I keep up with everything around me?
That's the most fun, because, and I think that that's why her intensity is so like is so on the surface as it is because she also, like you said, House of Cards, everything is moving so fast. So the second she gets into a TikTok, dance, it's like old news. So I think again, there's like she has to make money on these movies. She has to stay relevant. If she doesn't, like, she actually needs all these people like in this group to, because otherwise, I mean, they could all fall apart. So I think that her I again think that it's just sheer fear and panic of getting old, dying, and being irrelevant.
Yeah. And it's so interesting
I
that
don't
you
know
got to play.
anybody like that, by the way.
You don't surround yourself with the Maya Masons of the world. It's also so interesting to see you playing this character off the back of playing Agatha, because they're both people who don't pause and think about the empathy of what they're saying, and they're both very
Yes,
direct, but it's in
100%.
such different ways. And so, what was that experience of playing two characters back to back that have that shared trait, but kind of project it differently?
That's such an awesome observation, because both of them did feel very aspirational, like stepping into them, and just like an allowance. There was just an allowance that mean, I'm neither of them, but there was that kind of channel is really fun. Um, Definitely a perk of being a performer is to be able to, you know, try something on that would be really difficult or not cool. I mean, and that are not you, obviously, but that kind of release is like, whew. Uh, so yeah, it definitely came from different. I don't think Agatha certainly doesn't care as much about age or relevance at all. But in the same way, I guess they are both um, deeply need to feel powerful and are powerful in a lot of ways. Like I think that Maya is actually really good at her job, and I think Agatha is a powerful witch, clearly. But so I think that they are. I think Maya is like she's no joke. Like I think that she really does an incredible job in that studio, and I guess Agatha as well. Yeah, that's interesting. They don't. Um, uh, they're empathic. They are definitely missing both empathy chips for sure. I think Agatha has a little bit more, obviously, but I think that she is Maya's so in it to win it. Everybody's just how can she use them to stay relevant or in power?
No, definitely. But it does feel like with, again,
Yeah.
both Agatha and Maya aren't people that are soft with their feelings, but you can tell when they care about someone. And so when you
Yes.
stepped into playing Maya, how did you find the way that you wanted that to express itself?
Oh yeah. I mean, certainly Agatha. That we were. It's so. I mean that loss was underneath everything that we saw in that arc of her in that show. And I suppose that for Maya, that emptiness in the core is very lonely. So I mean, I wouldn't think, I don't think she would give like she's just not that self-aware, you know. Therapy is just a waste of time. So I think that she probably has one and she cancels almost every week. But at least she can say she has one.
But also, as you said, Maya is someone who we get to see is actually really good at her job and thrives in
Yeah.
certain moments. And did that feel like an important component to her when you read the scripts and you see things like the way that she's presenting concepts to Ron Howard or the way that
Mhm.
she's running the presentation for CinemaCon?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like I think that I've seen this person a lot, not just in this business, but in various like other moms. Da, da, da. Like there is a feeling of like a projection, definitely a projection of confidence, and then also like you really turn to them for the advice, like when you need it, because they know all the coolest restaurants and the da 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 and um so yeah, with those, I think that she knows she knows her business. Like I think that she really has achieved a lot for the studio. I think that she knows how to make a lot of money, and I think and that's like paramount. And not to bring studio into it, but like I think that I think that that's the most important thing in her, and she achieves that. Like has done that over and over and over again. And it doesn't at all have to be connected to the material
And in
that
terms of what
she's
you were
promoting.
describing, yeah, in terms of what you were describing before about that facet of her where there's like an adaptability and an attempt to fit in with things around her, it almost feels like there's also a little bit of a masculine energy to her because
Yeah.
of the time that she came into this career
Yes.
trajectory. And even just thinking about the way that the industry was when she started that job, how did that
Yeah.
idea of who she would have adapted into in that space to begin with also shape components of her?
100%. She definitely came up in a time where if you wanted to be a woman in power, you needed to be as patriarchal as the men around you. Like that was the only way to stay in the private plane. Like, and so I think that in a lot of ways, her and Patty growing up together, I'm sure that there was a lot. Like, I'm sure Patty maybe hired her. Like, I think that there was a lot between the two of them. And I think that obviously Maya is like her core is just not as rooted in the passion of the material for sure. But I think you're right. I think that that was a huge part of. And I knew a lot of women when I first started out who still had to have that kind of nonstop projection of like sleep is a sign of weakness. Do you know what I mean? Like any sort of self care is a sign of weakness. Like the cool thing is to say like I didn't sleep at all. I live at work. I haven't seen my children, like I haven't like that was the way to have status. Like I live at my office, all this stuff that you think like, whoa, like that is too much for the heart. Like I couldn't live that way. Like I just think of that and I'm like, oh, it's like so much tension and so much anxiety. And it- I guess like it's imperative clearly for this business of making film. But I think there's so much stress in all of our jobs that it is really it was very interesting to step inside of it and feel it from that degree because I of course have the same I feel like I'm an anxious person and like I get stressed out all the time and then there's this like feeling of urgency that I'm not sure where it comes from like all of a sudden feeling like why but I think that for her it's to such an extreme that and so familiar like I've seen it in so many women that never ever see their kids that like and they're all successful and incredible and I adore them but it's like that this is to the extreme of that I think for sure.
And as you just mentioned, that status idea of I'm working
Yeah,
so hard that I don't even see my kids. And Maya
yeah,
does mention a son like just once or twice. She's like mentions like that's like the face my son made when I caught him watching porn on my phone. Was
yes, and
that
that's the only time we hear about him. Yeah,
yeah? Was that something in the script or was that something that you kind of threw in as an improv?
no, that was definitely in the script so we're very excited to see what exactly that means in season 2 because he's only mentioned once. Definitely. So I think that's a whole story to um, enjoy. Yeah, I love seeing Ike's character with Sal's character with his daughters. So oh, heartbreaking. So I'm very curious to explore that relationship. Mhm.
And obviously, her relationship with Matt crosses so many boundaries and so many lines in the way they deal with each other. And I know that, that idea of, well, we used to make out, we used to hook
So
up
dirty
was
and dark. It's like what went on there? I know.
and that was something that you and Seth created and just started throwing in and then became recurring and then eventually it becomes physical towards the end at Comic-Con. How did it
I
go from
mean,
something that you
physical.
how did it go from something that you like both threw in as this like improv creation to something that then was that weird makeout on stage in front of everybody?
Yeah, that was something that was definitely not in the script. And I can't remember. I think it was when we did that like celebratory, like Kool-Aid dropped its trailer and it's doing like crazy viral. I think that that just came out of like just like that. They're both wasted. Like I think that I just that was definitely improvised in that moment and made us laugh so hard that it just became a runner. Yeah, which is and now that's another thing I cannot wait to explore in season 2 because and we also we always laugh about how there's like zero feelings involved. Like there is not one feeling. It is like we keep laughing at it. It's about like just it's a warm body. Like there is no you know no like nothing emotional involved.
And even after
Actually,
they
they gross each other out. I think like it's like just such a like they're actually like like so I think it's just like oh well I think whatever it happens it's like okay but I don't think it's anything that would like to share
was
or think about
was the
when they're
fact
in
that
each
they kind
other's
of gross each
presence.
other out why you had that moment where like after that happens on stage immediately you just kind of like look away and look down like away from him.
Yes, it was kind of like don't forget, but also disgusting.
The show as a whole and the way that it's filmed, the brilliant thing is that you're always in the scene, wherever the
Yeah.
camera's moving, whatever the foreground of the scene is. And so, it's so fun going back and watching these scenes and just like the trajectory of expressions that you're giving at any moment. And I know you've joked before about your like IMDb being like known for making big faces, but what was
Yes.
it? What was it like getting to do something like this where you get to kind of like constantly be so in the middle of it and you get to really make so many big swings like that?
Oh, it's so thrilling. It's like weirdly cathartic. And the costumes, the hair and makeup, I feel like do so much of the work. But it's again because of that, because of her, that's like the only thing that can how it can come out. Like it's like there again the allowance of like what the avatar of Maya is like kind of asks for it, and like she just she's so clear on the page that it didn't feel like I had to. I don't know, it just felt exactly the way, I don't know, it was just exactly the way she was supposed to come out. And an ensemble like this does have to feel in a certain way like a some sort of a band. Like everyone has their own instrument to play. And so this was definitely another beat that came in, like a sound that was necessary. Like everyone, there's like chatter, there's like slow stuff. And I felt like hers was like a, you know, huge drum or a cymbal that would just have to come in and be like, what? It was fun to find like that. And again, none of that is conscious. Like it just kind of, you find that with these, and we really, I feel really freaking blessed to be in this ensemble because it really like immediately was like gelled so well. And like those scenes had, for as stressful as they were to make, had such ease and flow to them in it that was um thrilling, like totally thrilling.
And she's also someone who feels all of her emotions, even
Mm.
physically. There's a moment where she finds out the Martin Scorsese film is actually a Jonestown movie, and it's like she has to remove her puffer jacket
Oh
with
yeah, she has a
anger.
hot flash for
Yeah,
sure.
in the middle of it, or just like the joy and the celebration of like showing up at Matt's house and like hip thrusting the liquor at him. And, did you
Mhm.
have that idea of how physical she was going to be with her emotions and her feelings being so extreme at the beginning?
No, no. I mean, that all real just kind of happened. I mean, I know it was funny for us to have like constant hot flashes because I think that her rage is like right under the surface at all times. Like it's just like burbling. I think rage feels real good at that time of a woman's life, and so I think that that is um a lot of that is just like what's happening probably with her. I mean, it also I think that ramification wise, again, coming from where the where she how she came up, there was like there's no like pause before you speak. There's no like think before you text. Like there's no. It is just constant uh reaction. Like she is just a reactionary human being.
Yeah.
And like I wonder, past wise, what's going to come back to haunt her. But I think that she's just that's how she's survived.
She is, and you've obviously talked a lot about her costumes and especially the hair pieces, and it gets more and more extreme episode by episode to the last episode where she's wearing like the Kool-Aid and the sleigh berets and like a million clips and
And like her
beaded
name.
chains. And was it as much like about the armor and the projection of
Uh,
look at me in this way as it was about don't look for the vulnerability inside of me,
oh,
this is how I
yeah,
want to be seen.
for sure. I mean, it definitely feels like armor. Like
Yeah.
there's not an inch that is vulnerable or showing at anywhere, like from the top of her head down to her feet. Like that is she is in publicity war. Like that is her military outfit for sure. I mean, I'll tell you, Mara, like there was in that last episode when we were the last two when we were in Vegas and I had that crazy ponytail. My amazing hairstylist after the end of the show was blow drying my hair and she was like, "Okay, do you know you have a quarter size bald spot on the top of your head?" And I was like, "No, I do not." But that it was so long that it was like I had to have its own chair, the ponytail, to rest between takes because it was so heavy. But really, there's no other way to do it but with that hair. And those again, that team is so genius. I love hair and makeup so much. They're so good, and so like they came up with a lot of that before. Like most of it before I even walked into the trailer. And so there's a lot of like, yes, 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 more, more, more.
It's so funny because I was on the studio lot the day that you guys were filming the episode where they're watching Ron Howard's film in the cinema. And I
Yes.
remember like seeing the look that you had, and I was like, I knew nothing about the character, and I was like, that's a choice. That's an interesting look there.
We were just talking about how like I mean she buys things and then sells them on the real. Like I think it's a constant moving of clothing. I feel like it's all happens in her office
Yeah.
during lunch. And I feel like spending money is like another addiction. Like I just think she just that feeling of new clothes is just it really fills something for her. And I think that she just got in her mind that this type of style was um just the coolest. And so that she's just stuck with it.
Yeah. And in talking
Mhm.
about the CinemaCon episodes, because everybody gets to indulge in the old school Hollywood buffet, and so you're playing Maya completely high on mushrooms, and so there's a whole different physical component, but also there's that great detail of the fact that even when she's high, her main focus is the presentation at 7:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
did you find what Maya was going to look like on that many mushrooms?
Oh, I mean, like, wasn't it like, I feel like it was sequins fatigue, right? Like, I think it was like literally like camo. Like, I think she had like a camo outfit with. So, in terms of like that idea of like marketing war, I mean, I feel like that was even at like even if she's like tripping, like you can't, like there's nothing is real, like everything's like starting. I think underneath all of that, like, is just getting to the morning. Like, doesn't know what it's going to look like. They're going to prop everybody up. We're going to get through it and it's going to be a success. Like, I feel like even the idea of like having him lowered from the ceiling was from a mushroom haze. Like, I think that, and because people are so scared of her, it just gets done. So that was really, really fun also you're right, to play that as well as like I mean, I think also because of that, because everybody was tripping, I think that heightened everybody. Like, we all just whipped ourselves up into a frenzy. It was so fun. And then
And
Patty coming in being like, what is going on? Sweet Patty.
the only
Incredible.
sober person in the
Incredible
episode.
Patty.
And it's so interesting that when Maya hears about the fact that they're trying to sell Continental to Amazon, she's laying on the bed in the hotel room at that point, and her reaction is just rolling around laughing. And did you think that that was just kind of like a real delirium, or like how many other things can go wrong at this
I
point?
think it was that. I think it was like, of course. Like, and I think it was also like it's the worst thing that possibly could happen, which in that moment was hysterical, because I don't think that it was like, I think it was, of course, like that's your biggest nightmare that comes in through that particular moment. Yeah. That's really hilarious.
And she's obviously running all the components for the presentation, but she also
Yeah.
is kind of stage managing it. Like, she's calling lighting
Oh yeah.
cues, which feels like a
Oh,
job someone else should be doing. Do you think she's a bit of a micromanager when you see things like
yes.
that?
Oh, for sure. I'm like, well, clearly she's a micromanager. She did not need to be doing that. But I think it would be much better having her up there than in like an empty seat in the theater barking orders at I mean, she had a megaphone. Didn't she have like a bullhorn or whatever? So
Yeah.
like, I think that is also her happy place. Is just screaming orders at people.
And
And
it's so
also
great.
being like, right, like there's no other option, like not really into collaborating. Like, it's what is happening is gonna work.
Yeah. And it's so great to get to see them all have that completely uncynical moment at the end on stage when they've pulled it off and they never thought they would, and they really shouldn't have. And they're all just chanting movies with the crowd. And what was that like, getting to film that scene and just be so uncynical in a show that kind of satirizes the cynicism of the industry?
Well, when I saw them all, when read it and saw everybody shouting movies over and over again, and even when we were shooting it, I was like, what? Like, I didn't quite know how it was going to land because it did feel so earnest. And I wasn't sure if people were going to be able to go there at the end of it, like to be earnest, or if it would feel like, oh, unearned. But it really, really, it really, I think that was so pulled off. Like, I definitely felt it. Like, you were able to actually have that, like, that like joy for a second, whether or not it be about movies or just be about like being getting through that unbelievable fire and having some glimmer of hope that it's going to work out. Like, but I do, yeah. It was like, I think that's why she had to kiss him that way, because that was her way of showing uh her vulnerability and joy that it actually worked out. The
And in
only
the
thing
way
she could do is bite his lip or tongue.
in the way that you were filming this whole show with all of the one shots, it sounds like the rehearsal process was a really key component
Yes.
into all of that coming together. And especially because you have to kind of think very differently when you're in a scene, because you're focusing logistically as well on, okay, the camera's over there, like I need to be here and this needs to happen at this moment, and you don't want to be the person that causes the cameraman to put the camera down and everybody to reset. And so how did
No.
the rehearsals really allow you to kind of think in character and not be thinking logistically as you were filming scenes?
That's a great question, because I think the rehearsals, they, I know Seth and Evan have even talked about this. Like the amazing DP kept being like, it is gonna suck until it doesn't. Like it's gonna feel like egg on your face until it doesn't. So like it was really embarrassing. Like for a while, you just had to get through that feeling of like, and thank goodness everybody really felt that also. Like it was clunky, and you never thought it would happen. You never thought it would happen. That a camera got on, and you were like, oh, this is not happening. This is not happening. And then all of a sudden, it would just every instinct that you had as a group at the very beginning, like from every department, just started to click, and you could just feel it popping. Like there was there was some stuff that took longer than others. Some stuff was really found very fast, and some stuff took a long time. And but always, like, they never moved on until it felt like it was like the whole thing was popping. And so when that would happen, it was like all of us were so excited. Like afterwards, it's hard not to like jump around, because it felt impossible at the beginning of the day that we were going to be able to do this, and not only technically do it, but like that it would every laugh would land. Was It just felt so daunting, like every single scene.
Yeah. There's also something I wanted to ask you about from the conversation that you were having when you were on Amy Poehler's podcast, because she was mentioning something about in the way that you work, that there's kind of this looseness that you kind of create for yourself in taking a moment right before you're filming a scene often. And I was interested in how you really use that beat right before you're going into a take to kind of find that and create that space that you need, especially for comedy.
I mean, at the risk of sounding like serious business, um, that moment always feels to me the most like heightened moment, is that like between, like right before action, where everyone has a totally different way of doing it. Like some people can like go right into it from like just, and sometimes I can do that. It depends on what it is. And sometimes it's helpful because you're open in conversation in the same vibe, and you can just like throw that into the scene. So that was kind of how a lot of this worked. I felt like, because if you had like any tension or like tightness before, it would be like much harder to just kind of like flow into a comedy. Um, but for sometimes it's very helpful to just grab onto the um the what needs to be accomplished story wise in the scene. Like instead of just like going into something, just it's very helpful to like remember the essentials of like what needs to be accomplished story wise. So that feels like a always an important moment.
Yeah, no, I really, really love that. And,
Yeah.
even in talking about the way that you improv and, I've heard you talk about how back when you were working on projects like Anchorman and earlier in your career, you would
Yes.
kind of go in with an idea of pre-planned alts and,
Yes.
different concepts,
Yes.
but it wouldn't feel as alive in the moment because you'd already planned it. And what was that journey for you in your career and kind of like realizing that, and how experience over time really allowed you to just like step back and allow it to be something more organic?
Yeah, I definitely, that was a genre though in comedy where people would like improv alts, because there was really no improvising. Like it was just there would be, you would just keep the camera would stay on you, and you were just supposed to be like rattle off like joke after joke after joke, which was like a lot of people are so genius at that. And then just their mind can be so just like open and really be improvising. And for me, it was very hard for me back then to do it. And so I did definitely pre-plan some stuff. And then it always was tense because you were giving to your scene partner, and then the camera would turn around, and there was like it was like a feeling of pressure to make people laugh, and that was tight. Like that was something that I would just, it was difficult for me. Like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Um, but it definitely didn't feel like connected to the theme. And so um that was I think like once I started hearing like throw the script completely away and just kind of which is not valuable for everything but at all, but like that kind of feeling loosened it up, I think, so that it didn't feel so um like panic and stress for it to be funny.
Yeah. And
I
I feel
guess.
like now it's become something that it's like a skill set that you're so known for, and you're coming into this and you're dropping things like Steve Buscemi is the worst case scenario just in the moment.
I mean, yeah, I definitely feel like as I've gotten older, the that feeling of freedom is you also are like just every time becomes so beautiful and precious. You just want to have a meaningful good time and um not try so hard not to overthink things like I did definitely when I was younger.
And the style of improvising on the studio was so different, again,
Yeah.
because of the way that it was filmed as these one takes. So
Yeah.
you don't want to drop something unless you know it's going to work. But also
Uh
because of the camera tracking and the movement with the handheld, you had to kind of think specifically about when is the camera going to be in the right place for me to drop this? You can't just throw something in the middle of a scene between other lines.
no.
And so how did that logistical element play into it being something really different as a challenge?
Exactly. Like even if you thought something could be fun to slip in, if the camera wasn't going to be on you, it didn't matter. Like the amount of time it would be to choreograph, like all that stuff for you to get your like one improvised line in that wasn't very additive because it was already in the script was not, you couldn't really do that in in worlds like Transparent or um a lot of other things where it was just like so much more loose and the camera would just follow you. I felt a huge responsibility to the camera and to that operator who was like Mark, who's like a member of the cast, and it, incredible, and that incredible DP. So improvising, there was not a lot of improvising, and sometimes, like you were saying, like if you started again so technical, it was a real learning curve for me. It was a real challenge, like so fun to figure out because as as the takes would go by and as you got the takes, like as it started to like really like pop, as I was saying before, then you would kind of know how much time you had when the camera was on you or on you and somebody else, that you could kind of play around with throwing something new in there, only if it was additive though. So it was like an essential improv, which I also felt was very just time wise, I really respected it. Like coming from also just comedies long time ago that felt like you had to get like kind of muddle through a lot of stuff that would never ever be used to find like the gem. So this felt like especially for this kind of show, which is for this show. I don't even know if I could say this kind of show because I've never been involved in anything like this. So that was also really really thrilling, and it's really thrilling to find the um to be in the economics of it, like because there wasn't a lot of, and you just trusted Evan and Seth. Like I just trusted them. Like they knew when it was working and when it wasn't. Even if you were like maybe, like they knew exactly. It was like also just like an exercise in just like free falling into their incredible taste. I
Yeah,
learned a lot.
it's so fascinating because it's so incredibly intricate. And like you said,
Yeah.
there isn't another show like this. It's doing something very different. And so I so appreciate you talking about it. Thank you so much, Kathryn.
Oh, this
Appreciate
was
it.
my pleasure. Have the best weekend. So good to see you.